It is difficult to avoid staring at the home located at 805 West Linden Street in Boise, Idaho as you are driving by it. Having been covered in a coating of soot, having windows that have been shattered and boarded up, and having debris scattered about the yard, the craftsman-style house that is 2 stories tall and 2,728 square feet in size seems to be an abandoned horror movie set. The reality, on the other hand, is a lot more terrifying. The residence is generally referred to as the Boise Murder House, however, it is also occasionally referred to as the Chop Chop House by locals. This is a sarcastic allusion to the grisly killing that occurred there more than 3 decades ago. On the early morning hours of June 30, 1987, Daniel Rodgers, who was 37 years old at the time, and Daron Cox, who was 31 years old, shot and murdered Preston Murr, who was 21 years old. The incident took place in the basement of Rodgers's house, which was located at 805 West Linden Street. Following the dismemberment of his body using an axe and a knife, the 2 guys packed the pieces of his body in plastic bags and drove to the border between Idaho and Oregon in order to dispose of the body parts in the Brownlee Reservoir nearby. The circumstances of the crime are horrifying, yet, there is one particular aspect that is more frightening than the others: Murr came dangerously close to escaping. The records filed in the courtroom indicate that a fight took place between the 3 males at around midnight, and that one of the 2 other guys shot Murr in the shoulder during the altercation. Following his successful escape from the house, he made a beeline for a neighboring residence, where he pounded on the door and pleaded for assistance, but no one replied. On the other hand, the neighbor who was inside did contact the police. He reported hearing someone hammering on his door and someone yelling, "Let go of me," followed by a shriek of agony. He also heard someone screaming loudly. When he peered out his window, he noticed someone after Murr. They ultimately caught him and dragged him back into the basement of Rodgers' house, where he was shot in the back of the head, causing him to die. Despite the fact that the police did not show up that evening, the same neighbor contacted them again the next morning to request that they examine the blood that was found on his screen door earlier that evening. A further horrifying image of Murr's frantic struggle to flee his assassins the night before was painted by the blood that was discovered around the area, including on sidewalks and at least one other home in the neighborhood. An ominous legacy continues to be present in the vicinity of 805 West Linden Street even though the crime scene has been cleaned up for a considerable amount of time. James Howell is listed as the new owner of the home in the property records that are accessible online as of the year 2000. It is unknown what happened to the house in the years immediately after Rodgers's transfer to the Idaho State Correctional Center to carry out the remainder of his life term without the possibility of release. Since then, Howell has leased the property out to a number of different tenants, and now, because of its close proximity to Boise State University, it has become a popular option for students who are looking for accommodation that is located off campus. The local legend around the home has a very college-like flavor as a consequence of this circumstance. According to a persistent story, fraternity members have reported witnessing blood pouring down the walls of the basement for years. This situation has been going on for quite some time. Many people who have lived there in the past have reported that there is something off about the location, despite the fact that this story is not true and that 805 W Linden was never an official fraternity house. There was a strange vibe and a scary atmosphere in the basement. As a means of intimidating them, we would bring people down there. Joe W., a former student at Birmingham State University, shared his thoughts with 107.9 Light FM, a local radio station. "I never saw any ghosts, but you could tell something wasn't right," he said. Another resident of Boise named Rachel R. shared with the station that her family came very close to purchasing the property in the year 2000, and that she continues to experience anxiety whenever she thinks about the tour of the house that they took. She said that the basement was by far the most unsettling area of the building, and that it seemed as if it had been abandoned. When it comes to the stories that have been shared with 107.9, the most peculiar one is the one that was provided by Dan D., and it extends well beyond the basement. One night, Dan and his companion had the impression that they heard someone attempting to break into the home. This is according to his narrative. As they stepped out to the front porch to have a look at the situation, they discovered that nobody was there. Once Dan had finished gazing around the front yard, he turned his attention to the home and saw a big black oily-looking thing in the window of a bedroom located on the second floor. It is in his memory that he seen the shadowy figure walk away from the window and towards the entrance of the bedroom before it vanished. Soon after that, it was seen once again outdoors, this time in a mirror that was placed on the porch. Dan watched as the ball of oily blackness went down the enormous column of the porch, gradually expanding in size until it filled up the whole image of the mirror and passed straight through him. He was able to see it go through him. It was the strangest and most unsettling thing I've ever experienced, and the very act of typing this brings up memories of it once again. He said that it seemed like icy fingers were pressing down on his shoulders. Howell is certain that the house is not haunted, despite the fact that tales like these and many more are unsettling. Deanne Davis, a former renter who resided in the home with her 2 kids from 2008 to 2009, is in agreement with this statement. She said to Idaho News Channel 2 that her family did not see any paranormal activity when they were residing in the property. However, even if there are no ghosts that are haunting the house, there is another power that is definitely present, the house's negative reputation. Davis said, "I was never afraid of it or felt that it was haunted, but there are so many stories that everyone is convinced that it is.